SWAT shooters and tactical shooters are having a bit of a resurgence in the last few years. I mean, think about it. We've got Ground Branch, Door Kickers 2, Insurgency 2, and Ready or Not all in the last 5 years. That's not even mentioning the mainstays like Squad and Arma 3. Plus there's VR games like Onward and Tactical Assault. I mean man, Tarkov just wiped, Ground Branch is about to add the best quad nods ever, and even COD's got offset laser aiming. But at least to me, it still feels like one vital part of the golden age of tactical shooters got left behind. And that's what I'm here to talk about. 1987, Airborne Ranger. I'm just kidding, I'm not going to play a game that looks like this just so I can pretend like I did more research than reading the Wikipedia page on tactical shooters. Let's skip ahead to a game that actually makes my point. 1998, Rainbow Six. In Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, that's right, there were actually Rainbow Six games before Siege, we take on the role of an elite counterterrorism operative working to eliminate global threats. The game features tactical squad-based combat that requires careful planning and execution in order to succeed. But that's not just me reading the back of the box. The game has a dedicated planning phase where you plan your movements beforehand, leading to a trial and error mind game, without missing on the first-person action on the ground like you would with a strategy game. There's also a ton of customization, but I want to get more into that later. Okay, I played those games for this video, but here's the game that really made me want to make this video. Rainbow Six Raven Shield. You handpick your teams, down to each man having his own stats, bio, and country of origin. You pick how many teams you need, balancing whether you want 3 smaller teams, 2 bigger teams, or 1 massive team. When a soldier dies during a campaign, they stay dead, and eventually you can be left with only generic mediocre soldiers to fight with. So the gameplay loop goes from just trying to complete every mission to creating a plan and tweaking it over and over and practicing it over and over, almost like a rehearsal for a real operation. You can even set markers in the planning phase for your own team, following your own plan step by step, or ignoring it and adjusting on the fly. You can switch to any character at will, so if red team is waiting by a door for a synchronized breach, you can switch to green to keep yourself in the action. Or you can switch to gold team to provide sniper support while red team pushes up. Overall, this is arguably the peak of tactical shooters, but there's a few other games vying for a shot at the top. Ghost Recon has a lot in common with Rainbow Six in terms of the way it feels. It wouldn't surprise me if it had the same engine. This game doesn't just have AI teammates, it requires them. An early level requires the elimination of 2 foot patrols and a tank patrol. These patrols are on the opposite side of the area and they close in immediately. This means you need to manage a minimum of 2 squads in opposite directions at the same time. In addition to this, you can only have a maximum of 2 rocket launchers, and if both men holding them die, the mission's just over. The AI have different modes of movement and rules of engagement because if they didn't, the game would suffer greatly. 2005, the peak. The peak! SWAT 4. This game has 90% of everything you could ever want. The friendly AI is competent, the enemy AI is varied, and the atmosphere is dripping.
Move it! Go! 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 Continuing. Room clear. Area clear.
Reynolds, area clear.
Doc, we found a graveyard in the basement.
In position.
Looks
Clear.
like it's their children.
God.
You deal with everything from cracked out gas station robbers to kitted out diamond store thieves to doomsday cultists. You can tell your teammates to stack up, fit yourself in the middle of the stack, and just go with the flow without much issue. Fellow officers don't stand in front of doors for the most part, and you can even order them to open a door while you throw a grenade yourself. With some minimal modding, you can re-implement voice commands, and that adds a whole other layer of immersion. SWAT 4 is probably the best tactical shooter I've ever played. It is missing the planning phase though. Here's where things start to change, roughly speaking. Rainbow Six Vegas, 2006. The planning phase is gone. In its place are squad commands. It's not horrible, but it's a lot more focused on cover shooting and spectacle, and a lot less focused on believability and tactics. There's still room for thinking with go codes and breaching and the like, but it's a lot more streamlined and a lot less deep. It's pretty easy to tell, at least in my opinion, that this game was made with consoles in mind. Let's skip ahead a bit. 2007, Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter 2. I'm going to talk about the PC version because that's the only one I've played. This is very similar to Raven Shield, where the console version omits the planning and tactics side of the game and focuses on the on-the-ground gameplay. This game goes damn hard. Troop movements can be decided from a drone view, and it's pretty similar to the first game in that regard. I find this interface to be a bit more appealing than the ones from before, but there's still too much clicking of menu options in my opinion. There are better and simpler ways to have complex sets of options in a menu like this, but we'll get to that later. This game has some future-y tech, but it's still pretty grounded, and I definitely recommend it. When I went to buy it, the only way to do it was downloading it from Amazon. Did you know you can download games from Amazon? But that's not the only thing that happened in 2007. COD 4. It's probably not fair to blame Call of Duty for where the industry went, but regardless, it went. Arcade shooters designed for consoles took center stage, and the already fairly niche genre of tactical shooters was streamlined. Ghost Recon Future Soldier was about cover shooting and action-packed set pieces. Breaches weren't planned, they were choreographed and watched so they could look as cool as possible. Like I said earlier, Vegas and Vegas 2 completely removed the planning phases of Rainbow Six and replaced it with third-person cover shooting. And it seemed that all was lost. But like I said in the beginning, we are in a resurgence.
helicopter.
Oh shit!
Kill that motherfucker.
We were taking pictures, you piece of shit.
The days were dark. But we got quad nods, baby! But seriously, we have games that appeal to the nerdiest of milsim nerds. Arma 3 has been out, and people do crazy things in it. Insurgency Sandstorm may be limping now, but it had a hell of a heyday, and it's still worth it for the co-op these days. Ground Branch is the only game I've ever played with a dedicated input to hold a weapon at high ready.
Punch out. Go to work.
And the newest update has the best quad nods ever put in a video game, hands down. Ready or Not is the closest we've had to SWAT since SWAT 4. It may not be done, but it's being built, and every major update is a banger. Let's actually examine Ready or Not, because it's a great example of my point. I understand this game isn't done yet, and I hope that when it is, my point will be completely wrong. But look at how the AI in SWAT enters a room.
Move it! Go! 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 Continuing. Room clear.
Now look at how the AI in Ready or Not enters a room.
Moving up.
There was a major update to the game's AI recently. They are now some of the best enemy AI I've ever seen in a game like this. They'll fake being dead, they'll conceal weapons, they'll hide around corners with knives, and they'll kill themselves when overwhelmed occasionally. As far as I can tell, the friendly AI in this game wasn't touched by this update. They still glide around the ground, their animations don't line up correctly most of the time, they spaz out if you bump into them, and they're just really clunky and annoying to deal with. This isn't to say there wasn't jank in the older games I mentioned, but in a game like Raven Shield, the AI is pretty intuitive. They react quickly, they do what they're told, and they pull rear security. I've still not seen this in another game. I'm dead serious. The Ready or Not AI looks goofy as hell like 90% of the time.
She's being goofy.
But at least Ready or Not has AI. What happened? Ground Branch has no friendly AI? Zero Hour has no friendly AI? What does AAA have for us, you may ask? Ghost Recon Breakpoint does have some LARP ability for gear guys, and I do appreciate how modular its mechanics and settings are. IR flashlights in a AAA game is cool, but these AI options, man. The options are go there, stop, and come here. And the game knows your teammates are brain dead, so for the most part, they just won't get detected by enemies, because Ubisoft knew it would be frustrating for your idiot teammates to ruin your stealth. In a fight, they either haphazardly sprint between random pieces of cover, or walk in a straight line and mag dump with utter disregard for self-preservation. Ghost Recon 1 trusted themselves and the player enough to have enemies spot AI, because the options for using them was extensive, and positioning them was part of the gameplay loop. I'm surprised they even bothered with this level of control, to be honest. And you know, I get it. These games are usually better with co-op. But most players, even the LARPy tactical shooter communities I hang out in, want to play the game by themselves sometimes. I play most games with the same set of friends, and those guys aren't into this shit like I am. Sometimes I just want to draw out a plan and have a robot follow it. I don't want to try to explain to my COD playing buddies what bounding is halfway through a game. There has been advancement though. Like I said earlier, the tech is just better now, and that means better fidelity of world spaces, more depth with weapon and gear customization, a better ability for randomly generated content, and the ability for smaller teams to make bigger and bigger projects. Take a look at Black One Blood Brothers. This horribly named indie tactical game is clunky as hell, it doesn't look all that great, but it's made by one guy as far as I can tell. And the depth of features is incredible. It needs a crazy amount of polish, but if it was perfected, it would be my dream game. The level of choice here needs to be seen to be believed. I'm not going to say it isn't bloated, but it's so cool. Teams can be set up however you want, troops can be moved as a group or individually. The individuals can be interacted with to the level of whether they have a flashlight or laser enabled, and you can manually enable and disable helmet IR strobes to the individual team member. Is it clunky as hell? Yes. Is the shooting fun? No, not really. But this is the closest I've seen to a spiritual sequel to the original Ghost Recon. And what is here impresses me a lot. I really hope this game survives and the developer keeps going with it. On the complete other side of this coin is Door Kickers 2. This game, in my opinion, is the best tactical planning game of all time. Gear selection is extremely customizable, and weapons, playstyles, and even factions can be customized. The user interface is also pretty elegant and simple. Left click to draw movements, right click to choose aiming direction. Right click to access equipment, go codes, and take specific actions, spacebar pauses and plays. Those aren't the only controls available, but that's all you need to play the game. Compare that to Raven Shield, where instead of drawing a path, you select points and let the game figure out the details. It's slower, clunkier, and there's a lot more clicking than necessary. One feature I do like is the ability to go to a previous point and modifying it without changing later points in the plan. Special mention to No Plan B. It's another tactical planning game, but it has more of an emphasis on synchronizing movements, and instead of pausing and playing, you focus on doing everything in one shot. It's a must play, but I don't have much to say about it right now. Taking everything I've said so far into consideration, what we really need is a union. The original plan was to describe a dream game to you, but there are already videos that do this, and my ideas aren't actually that deep. I had this big idea for all the stuff I could say, but it all boiled down to make Rainbow Six Ravenshield but with modern mechanics. And that's not that interesting. So let me try to make a visual example for you.
All clear, all clear.
We get the same strategy gameplay in the planning phase and the same fast-paced killer-be-killed gunplay in the attack phase. In this hypothetical game, the friendly AI would be lethal but defeatable, and for the love of Christ, they would watch your back! In my ideal world, more of these games would try to hone in on the single-player experience, and using a game like Door Kickers 2 as a foundation would be a great place to start. There are tactical planning games. No Plan B is a completely different game loop from Door Kickers, and both are fantastic games. But what happened to the boots-on-the-ground half of Ravenshield? I can't overstate how weirdly unique the loop of Ravenshield is. It's extremely cathartic to plan something, then see it fail or succeed based on your gameplay as well as your preparation. It's a two-pronged approach, and we only get one prong these days. Oh god, and that's not even mentioning... Tactical gameplay in VR is a lot like the John Wick gameplay I mentioned in my video on Gun Fu. They're similar in that mechanics can reinforce that playstyle, but the actual actions are down to the player on a much more fundamental level. Onward can be an authentic experience, but things like how you use cover and hold your weapon and communicate will affect how tactical that experience feels. You have to feel the LARPer inside you. Into the Radius is my favorite VR game easily, and it has lots of mechanics designed to immerse you in the world in very small ways. Guns need to be cleaned or they won't be dependable. You could say that this is just about resource management, since you're punished for not keeping track of the status of your equipment. But if that's all this was about, you would just use a menu or slap the stuff together to fix your gear. Instead, you spray the weapon with oil and rub off carbon with a brush. You put paper on a rod and clean your barrel. It's these little things that make the world feel real to you. Tactical VR games need to take advantage of the little things. I'm kind of skipping over the step where AI teammates in games like these actually exist because nobody makes them, but I want to go over my ideas anyway. First off, hand and arm signals. Halts, follow me, regroup, go there. Second off, voice commands. If SWAT 4 can do it, you guys can do it, come on. Third off, make interactions more interactive. Instead of just walking through openings, add doors. The action goes from walking to stabbing, prying, breaking, exploding. It's not that big a thing, but please put doors in. Most VR shooters, even the co-op ones, don't have doors, and I get why if it's a competitive multiplayer, but if it's co-op, doors add a ton to tactical shooters. There's so much decision making and thought to dealing with them. Is it locked? How do we open it? Do we peek and try to slip a grenade in? Do we clear from outside? Do we all enter at once? There's so much to think about, and having wide open entrances eliminates a lot of that. Sorry, weird door rant over, but I think I'm making some kind of point here. There are only a few games that are going for the experience I'm talking about here, in my opinion. But there are more on the way. Geronimo looks to be the VR tactical shooter of our dreams, and Ghost of Tabor is bringing the extraction shooter gameplay loop to VR. But Geronimo is explicitly not planning on adding friendly AI, because it's difficult and prohibitive to do. And that's the real issue behind this whole thing. Tactical shooters are a niche genre. Ubisoft used to carry the whole damn thing on its back, and now Rainbow Six is an esports game, and Ghost Recon is just Far Cry. Ready or Not lost its publisher. Swat is self-published. And Geronimo is made by 2 guys according to their Twitter. Scale is just small right now, and hopefully with the continued growth and success of games like these, we can see a game or two with some cash behind them to truly push this genre further than it's gone before. And that's a day I hope to see soon. If you like the discussion or you want to add to it, let me know in the comments. Check out the Discord if you want to play with me and the boys, and as always, subscribe to my fucking YouTube channel.